but for people it just is because it's all about what you're used to. And you're used to working with in the base 10 and with powers of 10. So, when you add or subtract common fractions that we worked with last week, after you wrote them vertically, what was the next thing you had to do when you add or subtract a fraction? Find a common denominator, remember. You can't add a third and a seventh. But with decimals, you don't have to worry about that, because if I had that, that tells me I have two what? Tenths. Or think about 2 dimes, just with something you're very familiar with. This says 2 dimes whether it's a 0 next to it or not. 2 dimes, 2 tenths. 2 things that it takes 10 of to make a whole, you see. It takes 10 dimes to make $1. This would be 2 dimes. If I put a 0 here, that changes to 20 what? Hundredths, or 20 pennies. The same thing as 2 dimes, right? Still 20 cents. Whether you have 2 dimes or 20 pennies, you have the equivalent of 20 cents. So with decimals, it doesn't matter how many zeros you add here, because every time you add a 0 here, you're adding a 0 in the denominator. You had 2 tenths. Then you had 20 hundredths, which would reduce back to 2 tenths. Then you had 200 thousandths, which would still reduce back to 2 tenths. Then you had 2,000 ten thousandths, which would still reduce back to 2 tenths, you see? So as long as you add a 0 up here and a 0 down here, it's still going to reduce to 2 tenths, because here 10 will go into both 20 and 100, right? 10 will go into 22 times and will go into 100 10 times. 100 will go into both of those. 100 will go into 200 2 times. 100 goes in 1,000 10 times, you see? 1,000 will go into both of those. 1,000 will go into 2,000 2 times. 1,000 will go into 10,000 10 times. They all equal 2 tenths. So you can add as many zeros as you want to the end of a decimal, and you have not changed the value of that, okay? And I tell you that because when you add and subtract decimals, you may have a string like that, and they're all uneven. The thing you have to remember is that as long as you keep your decimal point lined up, you will be adding tenths to tenths. You see, you have a common denominator. You'll be adding hundredths to hundredths. You'd be adding thousands to thousands. You know, if you had $1 and you wanted to $1.57 and I wanted to add 75 cents, I'm not going to start the 75 over there, right? Because then you're going to come up with, what, $9.07 when you only had $1.57 and 75 cents? As long as you keep the decimal point lined up, I'm saying I have 7 pennies and 5 pennies. Altogether I have 12 pennies. I can make 10 of them into a dime. Have 2 pennies left. Same thing we did with fractions, no difference. You have 1 dime, 5 dimes, that's 6 dimes, you got 13 dimes. If I got 13 dimes, I can make 10 of them into $1 and keep 3 dimes left. Now I have $2. You see, how you doing? As long as you keep the decimal point lined up, you are adding common denominators. Now, because that can get confusing, because the things are all hanging out there, that's when this is important. You can add zeros. The longest one is 3 decimal places. I'll make them all 3 decimal places. Just go through and add zeros to fill them out. That'll keep them lined up for you easily. And you haven't changed the value. This still just says $1.45. But now I'm just saying I have 4 dimes, 5 pennies, and no things that almost make a penny. see. So you can add the 0. Then it makes it easy to track down and say I only have 8 of those here. If I had 10 of them, they'd make a penny. But I don't, I only have 8. We don't have a coin that small, but numbers can get that small. Our coins only go to hundreds because pennies are the smallest thing we have. They could have made something that it takes 10 of to make a penny. You know, but they just didn't. You have 3 pennies, 7 pennies, you got 15 pennies here. I'm going to make a dime and have 5 pennies left. Now I got a dime, 7 dimes, that's 8 dimes. 7 more dimes is 15 dimes. 3 more is 18 dimes. 4 more is 22 dimes. I can make $2, right? And 2 dimes left. Same thing we've been doing all the time. And $2 and $1, $3. Okay, I'm just using dollars because that's what people are mostly used to when they think about decimals. But it's not dollars. Something can weigh 2 and 378 thousandths of a pound. You know, you can measure 1 and 45 hundredths of an inch. Because if I want to take that inch between 1 and 2 and divide it into 100 pieces, each piece is one of those 100, you see. And some measurements measure that way. On some measuring instruments, it is divided into hundredths and thousands. Any metric measurement has hundreds and thousands on it. And so you have to know if it's divided, if the whole is divided into 100 pieces, each piece is 100th. So if I go, if this is 1 and this is 2, and there's 100 little lines in between there, and I go to this first one, and they ask me what is that measurement on this first one, I'd have to say is 1 and 1/100th. If it's divided into 100, you see. 100th is what this says. If I had not put that 0 there, it would have said what? 1 and 1 what? 10th. So I'm saying it's divided into 10 pieces and I have 1 of them. No, that's a much bigger piece. It would take 10 hundredths to make a tenth. See, 10 pennies to make a dime. So I'd be way down here.
So on the other side of the decimal, it's ones?
On this side of the decimal, start your ones. Your ones, your tens, your hundreds.
But the other side of the decimal.
The other side starts with tenths. And that confuses some people. They think this ought to be ones, but no, you have to think about what we're talking about in our system. In our number system, 10 of something to the right of a number makes 1 of the thing to the left of it, no matter how far you go down. I'll just go to here. It would take 10 of these to make 1 of these, 10 of these to make 1 of these, 10 of these to make 1 of these, 10 of these makes 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 1 of these. Now we start understanding because we know pennies. 10 pennies make 1 dime. 10 dimes make $1, you see. $10 makes a $10 bill. 10 tens make 100. 10 hundreds make 1,000. 10 thousands make a 10,000. 10 10,000s make 100,000. 10 100,000s makes 1,000,000, and so forth. It's always 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. So on that side, it takes 10 of them to make 1 whole. Okay? Then from the 1 whole, that's the unit. Then you go on. From the unit, you go then to the base. Base squared, base to the 3rd power, to the 4th, and so forth. Always a power of 10. Okay? So, when you add or subtract decimals, the second step is to find a common denominator, just like it was with fractions. The difference is that you can find a common denominator with decimals just by keeping that decimal point lined up. And realizing that if I have a whole number, if you had a string like that to add up, just like we did with common fractions. First thing you do, write it vertically. But while I'm writing this, I have to write it in a way that I'm going to have a common denominator. Okay? So where does that 0.37 go under this 2? Right. I got to move over, right? Because the 2 has this decimal point there. That's 2 whole dollars. So then I'm going to put my decimal 37. Then I have 4 decimal 5. Then I have 32 decimal 2, 6, 8, 9. Now look, and I say I have 4 numbers past the decimal here. I'm going to put 4 numbers past the decimal in each one just so that it makes it easy for me to see. I don't have any here, I got to put 4. I have 2 here, I need 2 more. I have 1 there, I need 3 more. Now it makes it easy to do that. So that's the first thing you do. Once you have a common denominator, you add the numerators, just like you do with common fractions. These are just numerators. I have 9 of these. I have 8 of these. I have 7 and 6 of these. Only takes 10 to make one, so I'll put my 3 here and take that 10 over here. I have 4, 9, 11 of these. Only takes 10 to make one. Keep 1 and take the 10 over here. I have 3, 7, 9, and I have 3 of these. You see, once you have them lined up into their spaces where they go, you just need to add. So you don't have to try to find what they have in common. What they all have in common is a power of 10. That's what makes it easy.